Hey there everybody, it's Mark Crowley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today we're doing part 2 of my two-part series of videos on how to draw the face of a tiger. Now last week we got all these lines in place, but really that's just the beginning for doing a detailed drawing of a tiger. We're going to be doing most of the work today really in terms of time spent completing this illustration. And actually I should just warn you, there is going to be time-lapse in this video. It's just going to take a while to get all of the shading done, but you can see me taking my black Prismacolor here and beginning the process of darkening in some of these areas that, more clearly were designed to be jet black in last week's video. And that alone is going to make a big difference in terms of making this tiger look more tiger-like. Sadly, that is something that really does need to be relegated to time-lapse. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it into time-lapse. You're going to see me add blackness basically to all of the different areas that require it. And then we'll get in real time back into drawing the fur and doing more of the shading. So let's go ahead and get the black Prismacolor stuff done. Okay, so that's most of the black Prismacolor work there, and, again, sorry that was all in time-lapse, but I did feel that I was generally going on top of work that I had already done in last week's video. It's almost like an inking process in a way. You'll notice that I haven't done the whiskers yet. I'm going to save that for the end because I have decided that I'm going to try to do that in such a way that they appear to be white whiskers, because that does seem to be pretty important, really, in terms of depicting a tiger accurately. But what I want to do now is zoom in on the snoutal region and switch from the black Prismacolor to a Dixon Ticonderoga, and I'm going to start getting into some of the shading here. I'm going to do as much of this as I can, this whole area in here, real time. I think in the end I probably will have to resort to doing some of what I call the polishing phase in time-lapse. But let's go ahead and start with the real time, see how far we can go with it. Okay, so I just wanted to point out quickly that I decided to finally erase the square box guidelines from the beginning of the video. Belatedly, finally getting rid of that. And now it's time to get into doing some shading of what will appear gray, of course, because I'm using a pencil, but in real life, if I were doing full color, this would be sort of an orangish brown, that classic tiger color. And what I'm doing here, I'm keeping the pencil really quite low to the page, and I'm not going to attempt to depict every single fur, a single piece of hair, because they are incredibly small at this stage and short. And for you to draw each and every one of them, it's possible, but it's going to be very, very time consuming. So I'm just doing a sort of shading technique that hopefully represents that a fair amount. But what I'm noticing is that in my studies of the tiger images, photographs that I saw, that when a tiger is facing straight toward you, this whole area here is a little bit lighter than these two regions next to it. And I think that is just because of the shape of the snout. And especially this area up here near the eyes, was getting quite dark indeed. I don't know if it's a matter of coloration or just lighting, basically. But this is, pretty key to getting this the structure to come through, is getting these two areas on the side to be a little darker. You probably want them to blend fairly gracefully into this lighter area up the middle. So yeah, you can see I'm really not making an effort, although I may later on. I'm not making an effort to try to suggest individual. I keep wanting to say blades of hair. I don't think that works. individual hairs. Certainly something you could attempt to do, but they are, like I said, super, super short at the all across the snout of the tiger. Now, here's what I want to get into, though. Make sure that my camera's focused here. There is an area up here on either just above the eyes on both sides of the head that remains white. And so what I'm doing here is taking my pencil and just drawing a line, even though there is not a harsh line there in real life, just to remind myself of where these two white areas are going to be. And in a way, I'm sort of roping off these bits here and saying, okay, no shading is going to go inside there. And it sort of trails off a little bit above. Is that in there? Okay. But definitely, let me go ahead just to show you what I'm talking about. This area in here is, imagine this as orange, but just below the eye is remains white. So this kind of coloration stuff is crucial towards finally making this begin to look a little more like a real tiger, because I think, early on it may have looked like a lion or something, and before we start getting in here with this shading, it may look like some exotic breed of tiger that's completely black and white, like some sort of zebra tiger or something. This third color, I think we can call it the third color, it's black, white, and orangish brown, is really crucial to finally making this thing start to look like a tiger. And, one thing that I didn't have time to get into too much when, I went through time-lapse going over things with the black Prismacolor. But there is an aspect of having some sense of the direction of the fur, especially as you start heading out and away from the snout. Heading out, away from the snout. Such the poet I am. Then you begin to really need to be aware of the direction that each blade of hair takes, and that is basically, everything is pointing out from the face, like almost like a clock face. All the lines heading out to the north, south, east, and west, I suppose you could think of them. And even when I was doing this with my black Prismacolor, I was sort of paying attention to the direction. And you can see it, I suppose, especially now that we're zoomed in. Let me go ahead and do this. Like I said, it is important to get the delineation of where it stays white. And again, I just should say again, this probably does not apply to every single tiger breed. Different, tigers are going to have the coloration in different places. But at least some of the photos I saw were leaving very clear white areas right here around the eye. And much as I wanted to do loads and loads of this real time, I do feel like I may have to resort to a bit of time lapse. I know when I did the wolf video, people are like, "Oh man, you time lapsed through all the fur," and that's the hardest part. And indeed, it is the hardest part, and that's why I thought if I did a whole separate video on the shading, that I would be able to get into that more. Actually, let's here. I'll shift the camera up just a little bit and see if we can get into the direction of the lines before I finally do go into time lapse. Okay, so I'll try to show a little bit of this real time. Just you can see I'm having my lines go up and down, quite vertical here near the middle, and then they begin to lean over as they head out. And that's getting your lines to follow in this direction. Each line sort of fanning out a little more diagonally than the one that preceded it. If you have the patience to make your lines follow in these directions, it's going to pay off in the end with a more convincing illustration of a tiger. Now, this area near the snout is really quite dark. If we think of it as like a dark orange, I found, at least in some of the tiger breeds I was observing, that this area up here was a little lighter. But yeah, again, this is I could go down rabbit holes, basically, of tremendous detail on every single aspect of this. I do feel like we need to keep things moving, especially because I wanted to do the whiskers. And that, I think, is going to be a time-lapse fest of sorts, because it is going to require real painstaking work. But I think you got the basic idea there in terms of what I'm going to be doing as I enter the final polishing phase of getting this fur, getting these lines to all point in a particular direction, rather than just sort of randomly shading it in with diagonal lines or whatever. If you have the patience to try to make the lines represent the actual growth patterns, directions of the fur, you will be rewarded with a much more authentic looking or sort of photo-real looking illustration. I'm going to be coming back to this whole area for sure, and doing a lot of polishing later on. But for now, let's move on to the whiskers, and that'll be the sort of last bit of focus before we start winding this video down. Okay, so I'm going to limit myself to just one side here, and you're going to very quickly understand how time-consuming this is going to be for me to do, and that's why, you know, it will by necessity have to be in time-lapse. But instead of trying to draw the actual whiskers, I'm sort of drawing the spaces between the whiskers, and leaving just the tiniest of gaps between them, and these little white areas that you hopefully can see will actually be the whiskers that we see in the final drawing. So you're sort of drawing around the whiskers rather than trying to draw the whiskers themselves. Like I said, I had different options here. I could have tried to do this with white gouache. You can see me pulling out the old pencil sharpener there. Could have done this with white gouache. I thought I'd just show you a technique that allows you to not necessarily need any other tools except for these two types of pencil, the black Prismacolor and the Dixon Ticonderoga. Again, just it's a matter of patience. Do you have the patience to try to indicate the spaces between the whiskers rather than the whiskers themselves? If you do, I do think you'll be pleased with the final result. But this is... yeah, even just doing bits of this real time, I just feel like, man, this video is going on forever. And I knew that. In a way, when I decided to do a tiger, I thought, man, this one's going to be a long video, because there's just so many little details to deal with when you start drawing the face of a tiger. But I think you get the basic idea. Those of you who want to attempt this white whisker approach, you can kind of get the idea of how I did it during just this very brief real-time bit. But let's go ahead and pull back, and I'm going to start moving into the final polishing phase, and we can finally bring this video, or these two videos, to a close. Alright, well, there's my video on how to add shading to a drawing of a tiger. As always, so much of the drawing takes place during this final polishing phase. Very easy to spend like a whole hour or more just touching things up, darkening things in, you know, just continually working at it until you bring it finally up to that point where you feel like it's done. And I think maybe it is. So let me thank anyone who has supported me by getting any of my books. We've got Brody's Ghost, we got Minky Falls, my 2 graphic novel series, as well as Mastering Manga 1 and Mastering Manga 2, my How to Draw books. Really do greatly appreciate anyone who supports me by getting any of those books. But let's go ahead and lay down this pencil. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.